She slammed her clipboard on my truck and yelled, "You can't live here." But the crazy part? My house isn't even in her HOA. I just stood there, holding my coffee, trying to process what I'd heard. It was my first morning in the new neighborhood, my dream home, finally. Quiet street, open yard, no HOA rules. That's exactly why I'd bought it. But this woman, she acted like she owned the entire block. She strutted closer, her oversized sunglasses reflecting my confusion. "This is Maple Ridge territory," she snapped. "You'll need HOA approval for that paint color, your truck, and that fence." I blinked. "Ma'am, I think you've got the wrong house. I'm outside your jurisdiction." Her lips curled into a smirk. "Oh, we'll see about that." She pulled out a fake-looking form and slapped it against my chest. "Violation notice. You have 72 hours to vacate before fines begin." I actually laughed, thinking she was joking. "You don't have any authority here." Her smile faded. "You'll regret saying that." That's when she took out her phone and started recording, narrating loudly for her followers. "This man moved into HOA property without approval. He's trespassing." A few neighbors peeked through their windows. Some whispered. One even filmed. I felt my stomach drop. This was how rumors started. Still, I stayed calm. "Karen, right? You might want to check your maps before accusing people." Her eyes narrowed. "My name's Miss Clark, and you'll be hearing from our board." She stormed off toward her house, still shouting into her phone. As I watched her disappear, I noticed something strange. A shiny black SUV parked near her driveway with tinted windows. Someone was watching. I didn't know it then, but that SUV wasn't from the HOA, and this was only the beginning. Viral line. "She screamed I broke HOA rules, but I don't even live in her HOA." I watched that black SUV for a few seconds, trying to figure out why it hadn't moved. The engine was running, but the windows were tinted too dark to see inside. I shrugged it off and went back to unpacking boxes, telling myself I wasn't going to let one nosy neighbor ruin my first day in my new home. But about an hour later, I heard a car door slam. When I looked up, Miss Clark was back. This time, she wasn't alone. Two men in matching polo shirts stood beside her, holding clipboards and wearing badges that looked off. She pointed straight at me. "That's him. He's the one violating our HOA code." One of the men stepped forward. "Sir, we're with the Maple Ridge Home Association Enforcement Division. We need to inspect your property immediately." I raised an eyebrow. "There's no such thing as an enforcement division. HOA isn't the government." Karen crossed her arms, grinning like she'd already won. "We have full authority to issue citations and remove non-compliant residents. You're breaking HOA Article 4A. No trucks, no metal fences, no off-grid power setups." My jaw clenched. "You're standing on private land that's not part of your HOA. You're trespassing." One of the officers stepped closer, flashing his fake badge. "Sir, you need to calm down." "Or what?" I asked quietly. He hesitated for half a second, and that's when I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Smile for the camera," I said. "Because you're impersonating law enforcement, and that's a felony." Karen froze. Her confident smirk vanished. "Stop recording." "That's not allowed." "Actually," I said, keeping my tone even, "it's perfectly legal on my property." The two fake enforcers exchanged glances. Then, like cowards, they turned and walked back to their car. Karen stood there, red-faced, trying to figure out what just happened. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "You don't know who you're dealing with." I stepped closer. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Her eyes widened a little, maybe because she saw the calm in my face. That kind of calm that comes from training. The kind they teach you when you've done 12 years in the Army and learned how to read danger before it starts. I didn't tell her that, though. I wanted her to keep guessing. Later that evening, I checked the footage. Every second of it was crystal clear. The fake badges, the threats, everything. I stored it safely in the cloud. Just in case. But then something weird happened again. Around midnight, I heard movement outside my fence. Quiet footsteps, like someone trying to sneak around. When I turned on my floodlights, I caught a glimpse of Karen crouched near my mailbox, slipping something inside. She bolted when she saw the light. I walked over, opened the mailbox, and found a folded piece of paper. It wasn't a letter. It was another fake notice of violation, only this one said, "Final warning, vacate or face legal action." And at the bottom, in messy handwriting, "This is your last chance." I stood there under the buzzing light, holding that paper, and whispered to myself, "Okay, Karen, you just made this personal. She sent fake enforcers to my door and found out the hard way I'm not just another homeowner." The next morning, I found muddy footprints all over my driveway. Someone had been there again while I slept. My motion cameras had caught movement around 2:30 a.m., but the footage was missing when I checked my system. Deleted. That's when I realized someone had messed with my security feed. I felt that cold anger rise in my chest. I'd dealt with stalkers overseas, people who thought intimidation could work, but this was supposed to be home. I wasn't about to be bullied off my own land. So I went to the sheriff's office. The deputy on duty knew me. We'd served together in the reserves. I told him everything: Karen's fake HOA forms, the bogus enforcers, and now the missing footage. He frowned, writing it all down. "Sounds like impersonation and harassment," he said. "But you'll need solid evidence if you want this to stick. Keep your cameras rolling and don't confront her alone." That was fine by me. I already had something better. What Karen didn't know was that my property had a backup security system, hidden cameras she couldn't see. That night I set everything up again. I didn't have to wait long. Around midnight, a faint flashlight beam flickered outside. Through the lens, I saw her again. Karen, wearing dark clothes, sneaking toward my backyard fence with someone else. This time, she wasn't carrying papers. She had a can of red spray paint. I hit record. She started tagging my fence with HOA violation in big red letters. The man beside her laughed and said, "He'll move out once he sees this." I waited until she finished. Then I stepped out quietly, phone camera still rolling. "Karen," I said. She froze mid-step. Her partner ran, but she stood there like a deer in headlights. "You're trespassing," I said, "and vandalizing private property." She tried to regain her fake authority. I was marking boundaries. "This fence is inside HOA limits." I pointed toward the corner post. "That GPS marker right there says otherwise. You're 100 feet outside your HOA line." She opened her mouth to argue, then saw the blinking red light of my camera. Her voice faltered. "You can't record me." "Oh, I can," I said. And I just did. She charged toward me, trying to grab the phone. But she didn't realize she'd tripped the motion alarm. My floodlights snapped on, bathing the yard in white. The siren went off, echoing across the neighborhood. Windows opened. People peeked out. Karen froze again, caught like a thief. "Go home," I told her. "Before this gets worse." She stumbled back, furious. "You'll regret this," she spat. "You think you're clever? You don't know what I can do." Then she ran. I didn't chase her. I just watched her go and uploaded the footage straight to a cloud drive, naming it Karen, Night Trespass Evidence. The next morning, I woke to find a new post spreading through the local Facebook group. "Dangerous man moves into our neighborhood. Claims HOA doesn't control him. Threatens board members." There were pictures of me, taken from angles that looked like she'd been watching for days. Comments piled up fast. Some neighbors defended her. Some didn't. But one comment stood out. "Be careful, that HOA president's been under investigation before." That name, Miss Clark, was attached to a case file I recognized. And what I discovered next would turn this entire feud upside down. She thought she could paint my fence red, but all she did was paint herself guilty. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. I spent the next day digging into that comment. She's been under investigation before. At first, I thought it was just gossip, but the more I searched, the more pieces started fitting together. Turns out, Ms. Clark wasn't just some power-hungry HOA president. She had a history. 2 neighborhoods before this one, She'd been caught funneling HOA funds into her own maintenance company. Locals tried to sue, but the case mysteriously vanished when the records were lost. Now she was running Maple Ridge and trying to extend its borders illegally, probably to take over my property for her next scheme. That black SUV I'd seen earlier suddenly made sense. It wasn't random. It was surveillance. She was trying to intimidate me into leaving so she could claim my land was part of her jurisdiction. But she picked the wrong person. That evening, I printed every document, HOA maps, county zoning lines, tax records. My property was clearly outside her HOA by more than 50 feet. I put it all into a neat folder labeled Evidence Clark Case. As I was reviewing it, I heard the crunch of tires outside. When I stepped out, the same black SUV was parked near my gate again. Only this time, someone got out. A tall man in a suit, clean cut, wearing mirrored shades even though it was nearly dusk. He walked up to me calmly. "Evening, sir. I'm with the Maple Ridge Compliance Office. We've received complaints about your presence here." I crossed my arms. "You mean from Ms. Clark?" He smirked slightly. "Let's just say she's concerned about maintaining order." I stared at him. "You realize this property isn't under her control." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Off the record, if you just move out, this will all go away. You don't want to make enemies around here." That tone, half threat, half warning, told me everything I needed to know. I didn't answer. I just raised my phone and started recording again. "Say that one more time," I said quietly. The man's smile faded. "You're making a mistake." He turned, walked back to the SUV, and drove off without another word. That night, I called my friend Jake, a deputy who owed me a favor. I sent him the footage, the fake notices, everything. He whistled when he saw it. "Man, that's not HOA business. That's criminal intimidation. You sure you want to take her down?" "Jake," I said, "I fought in places where people tried to control others with fear. I didn't come home to let someone like her do it here." He chuckled softly. "Then you'll need solid proof. Let me check something on her." A few minutes later, he called back. His tone was different, tight, serious. "You're not going to believe this. Clark's been using a forged county map to claim extra land. About 3 acres, including yours." I sat in silence for a moment, the pieces falling into place. The harassment, the fake fines, the late-night threats. It was all part of her plan to steal that land before the county review came up next month. "She's been doing this for years," Jake added, "but no one's ever caught her on record." "Well," I said, "she's about to be." The next day, I set up every camera I had, front yard, backyard, drone view, even one hidden near her fence. I wasn't waiting for her to make another move. I was inviting it, and she didn't disappoint. That night, my drone feed caught her again, this time with that same suited man. They were talking near my property line. I zoomed in and heard her voice through the mic. "Once he's out, we file the annexation paperwork. No one will question it." Then the man asked, "And if he doesn't leave, then we'll handle it," she said coldly. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just a bully. She was dangerous. She didn't know I'd been trained to fight lies louder than bullets. The next morning felt different. The air was too quiet, too still. The kind of silence that happens before something big. I could feel it. Karen wasn't done, not even close. I spent the morning reviewing the drone footage again, making sure every word she said was clearly audible. It was perfect, crystal clear. Her own voice, confessing to falsifying land claims. It was everything I needed. But I didn't want to go to the sheriff just yet. I wanted to catch her red-handed, one last time. By noon, I saw movement again outside my fence. Karen stood there with 2 HOA board members and that same man in the suit. This time, they brought a truck with a tow hitch. They were planning to remove my gate. I stepped out slowly, camera already recording. "Morning, folks. Need something?" Karen gave me that fake polite smile. "We're here to enforce HOA compliance. You've been officially removed from the community registry." I laughed once. "That's funny. Because according to the county office, this property isn't on your map. In fact," I held up the folder, "your map is a forgery." Her face twitched, but she kept her composure. "You're obstructing an HOA action. You'll regret this," the suited man signaled the workers. "Take down the gate." That's when I pulled out my phone, already streaming live to Facebook. "Everyone watching," I said calmly. "These people are illegally trespassing on my land. They're pretending to be HOA officials, and they're trying to seize private property." The moment Karen realized she was being live-streamed, her eyes went wide. "Turn that off." "Nope," I said, stepping back so they were all in frame. "The internet deserves to see what fake power looks like." The suited man lunged forward, trying to snatch my phone, but before he could, a police siren wailed down the street. 2 sheriff cruisers pulled up fast, lights flashing. Jake stepped out of one of them wearing his badge, calm as ever. "Morning, folks," he said, hand resting on his holster. "Someone want to explain what's going on here?" Karen immediately put on her innocent act. "Officer, thank goodness you're here. This man has been harassing our HOA, refusing to comply with regulations." Jake looked at her, unimpressed. "Funny, because we just got a county report saying you're the one under investigation for fraud." Her face went pale. "What?" Jake turned to me. "You got the footage?" "Every second," I said, handing him the backup drive. He plugged it into his car's laptop and played the video. Karen's voice, crystal clear, saying, "Once he's out, we file the annexation paperwork. No one will question it." The silence that followed was brutal. The board members backed away from her. Even the suited man muttered something and walked off toward his car. Jake looked back at Karen. "Ms. Clark, you're under arrest for falsifying documents, trespassing, and criminal harassment." She took a step back, shaking her head. "You can't do this. I am the HOA." Jake smirked. "Not anymore." As he cuffed her, she glared at me with pure hatred. "You'll regret this. You don't belong here." I just stared at her, calm and steady. "I belong exactly where the law says I do." The neighbors started coming out one by one, watching as Karen was led to the patrol car. Phones were out, cameras recording. For the first time, her power crumbled right there in front of everyone. As the sirens faded, Jake turned to me. "You could have moved out, you know. Would have been easier." I looked at the wrecked fence, the spray paint still on the wood, the dirt marks where she'd tried to claim my land. "Yeah," I said quietly. "But easy never fixes what's wrong." She tried to tow my gate, but ended up towing her own reputation straight to jail. The next few days felt like a storm had finally passed. The neighborhood that once watched from behind curtains now waved when I walked by. Some apologized quietly for believing Karen's stories. Others just looked embarrassed. Her arrest had made the local news. HOA president arrested for fraud and harassment. The headline alone was enough to make half the town talk, but I wasn't celebrating. Not yet. There were still pieces to clean up. My fence, my name, and the feeling that my home had been under siege from the moment I moved in. Jake dropped by later that week with an update. "She's facing multiple charges," he said, leaning on his cruiser. "Forgery, impersonation, attempted property theft. She's not getting out of this easy." I nodded slowly. "She'll probably claim it was all a misunderstanding." "She can try," he said. "But you've got hard evidence, veteran or not." When he left, I sat on my porch for a while, staring at the sunset bleeding orange over the rooftops. For the first time since I'd bought the place, I actually felt peace. My land, my rules. My home, I could have moved away, started fresh somewhere else. But I didn't, because that's not what you do when someone tries to scare you off what's rightfully yours. You stand your ground, quietly, legally, and with proof. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the county. It confirmed everything I already knew. The land boundary, the zoning, the official declaration that my property was not and had never been part of any HOA. I framed that letter and hung it near the front door, a little reminder that truth always wins in the end. The funny thing? Her old HOA started crumbling without her. Board members quit. Residents demanded audits. Turns out she'd been taking maintenance fees for repairs that never existed. Within a month, the HOA was disbanded completely. Freedom spread faster than fear ever had. One evening, while fixing the last bit of my fence, a small kid from the neighborhood walked up. "Mister," he said, holding out a can of white paint, "my dad said we should help you clean that up." I smiled. "Tell your dad I appreciate it. And tell him, this fence isn't coming down ever again." He grinned and ran back home. I stood there, brush in hand, painting over the red spray marks she'd left, one stroke at a time. Each swipe erased a bit of her arrogance, her threats, her lies. When I was done, I stepped back and looked at the clean white fence shining in the fading light. That's when I finally allowed myself to laugh. "Guess I win," I said quietly. The camera I'd set up was still rolling, mostly out of habit. I looked straight into it and said the line that had been sitting in my chest since that first day she'd screamed at me. She told me I couldn't live here, but now she doesn't even live free. Later, when I uploaded that final video, the whole journey from her fake notices to her arrest, it exploded online. Millions of views, thousands of comments. People loved seeing justice done the right way. No revenge, no violence, just truth. And in every message I saw the same words repeated again and again. "This is why you never mess with someone who knows their rights." I smiled at the screen, closed my laptop, and took a deep breath of that quiet evening air. The land was mine. The peace was mine. And finally, so was my freedom. She tried to control my home, my land, my life, but in the end, she lost everything. And I finally got all three back.